Welcome to the world of ShadowWest, a dark fantasy western powered by the fast and flexible Shadow Dark system. It's a new vision of our own Wild West. The sun can be cast into darkness for days. An alien mystical ore crashes to the earth during the hours of the bleak. Factions rise, trying to control its power. Myths come to life. Strange creatures roam the landscape and dwell in deep, dark mines. But in forgotten gulches and in the ruins of ancient civilizations, great power can be found. You can play as a gunslinger, a scout, a holy roller, a rough cut, range rider, or a mystic. All of these classes, many backgrounds, and unique legacy abilities have been created just for ShadowWest. You'll also find new rules for riding, trains, firearms, and a skill system. You'll also meet a whole host of dangerous and terrifying critters that now walk the deserts and prairies. Get out of the saloon and take a look around. See what is waiting for you in the dark of the ShadowWest.
All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Howdy. Welcome to the official Kickstarter launch party for ShadowWest, our supernatural Western RPG built for the Shadow Dark system. I'm Maeve. I'm on the team here at Fox and Boar Games, and I'm coming to you live from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. I'm thrilled to have y'all here tonight as we ride into a world where gunslingers, holy rollers, mystics, brawlers, riders, and trackers carve their legends into the dust and dusk of a haunted frontier. And this isn't your everyday Wild West. In ShadowWest, the plains stretch wide under the weight of the bleak, a supernatural darkness that brings ancient horrors and lost civilizations out of the shadows. There is incredible plot twists, and we are so excited to share some incredible updates about the campaign with you tonight. Writing is well underway. So I will be bringing on John Harford, who is the writer of ShadowWest. Let me get him up here on the stage with me, and he is going to talk us through the campaign.
My faithful companion through many dark Western RPGs. He usually sits by my side, or she, I'm not sure. Thanks, Maeve, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully everything's rolling smoothly in the world of new technology versus ancient magic technology. So ShadowWest, I've been talking about it now for 2.5 months, 3 months. It started out over at Page after our Shadow Dark game run by James Iraq. And I said to the group, I said, man, wouldn't it be cool to have like an old school, almost like Boot Hill style, dark Western fantasy with these rules? And everybody was like, that would be amazing. And I was like, okay. So I talked to a few other people, both online, and then I finally posted to the Shadow Dark forum and on Facebook and then in the Discord, and there was a lot of excitement about it. So I decided to go from there. It is an analog to Old West. It is set, I believe I said late 1860s. Dates are still flexible as we're writing. And it is much like some of the other supernatural or Weird West settings that we've seen before, in that it is a world that's very much like our own, except there are supernatural events, magical events. People are in tune with supernatural abilities, whether they're arcane or they think they're getting them from God or whatever. They're able to do it. There are a couple of unique features. Now, the first thing I'm going to do when I'm mentioning this unique feature is I'm going to give a shout out to a student of mine, Chris Campercio. Chris was actually totally unaware of what I was doing here. And for his term project, he decided he was going to do this Dark Western game as a mini game for my class, my game design class, game narrative class. And I was like, that's interesting. He goes, yeah, you know what I was thinking? And he has this whole other backstory. It's not related to this, but he's like, man, imagine if it just suddenly got light and dark and nobody knew why. And imagine if there were like this weird meteor falls and people could call it. And I was like, let's talk about this. So Chris and I talked a little bit more, and we kind of conceptualized some of the ideas based off of some of this seed that he had for this. And he doesn't have any access to any of this. He's not into Weird West. He's played 1 or 2 video games like this. but it was kind of cool to get this little seed. So he's going to be getting credit in the book as a person that helped develop some of the original concepts. And those concepts in their final form are the bleak. The bleak is the main feature of the world. Now, this ties in so well with Shadow Dark. When he's like, oh yeah, imagine if like the world's got light and dark all of a sudden. And he has a whole other reason why it happens, which is not this reason. His reason's very, very weird, very funny. That there are periods starting on the night of April 30th, 1832, which is an analog to tonight. And as many of you know, it's also Walpurgisnacht or Hexennacht in Northern Europe, which is considered a holiday. It's kind of the spring analog to Halloween of supernatural events and when supernatural creatures roam the landscape. So I had written that in about 2 months ago. And then when we were discussing the date for the Kickstarter, I was like, you know what? Maybe April 30th is a good night. So there's a tie-in, and a few people online already noticed this, and I thought that was really cool. They were like, April 30th, did you pick Walpurgisnacht? And yeah, I did. Because as most of you know, when I create these worlds and I create these games, I like to tie in some underlying folkloric thread, some underlying mythical thread. I've never liked these games and they exist entirely without context. And especially in a world that is analogous to our own, I thought it'd be really cool to have that tie-in. So the bleak occurs, and with the bleak comes supernatural creatures. Now, those of you who play Shadow Dark know that this is already bad. Like, if it's dark all the time, it's already bad in Shadow Dark. Well, this just makes it doubly dangerous to go to the outhouse at night, right? There might be ghouls lurking around in the darkness because of the Shadow Dark, complete darkness, random encounter situations. Plus, creatures are more powerful in the dark in Shadow Dark. So that's going to be one of the kind of the opinions of the core. And I kind of got this idea that during this, there are these skyfalls of ore, which I've called Oryx. And this ore is meteoric supernatural ore. We've already discussed, Lisanne and I had some discussions about where this would actually come from and what the source is, and what this actually does. And so far in the game, as I've developed the characters around these concepts, the Onyx is it's a fuel. It can be used as a magical focus. It can be used as a fuel for magic rituals. The problem is it burns out really quickly. So people always want more. So there are companies who started employing magicians called Skycallers, who are a special, right now, NPC class, who are able to call down this ore and theoretically direct where it strikes. Of course, we all know that's not going to always go as everybody wants it to. And there's these rushes to try to get this ore when there are these skyfalls. So there is gold mining, there's silver mining, there's rhyolite, there's all the things that people mine for in our Old West, but now there's also this supernatural element. And yes, there is in the background of my brain to try to work in kind of devices powered by this, things like that we see in other kind of clockwork steampunk settings. But I really want to keep this more dusty, more dark, more gritty, I think. And I think that's one of the things that's going to define this, because Shadow Dark is already pretty gritty for a modern fantasy game. And I want to carry those themes over. And wow. So I guess, do we have our screen sharing going, Maeve? Let's see. Yes, we do. Perfect. So here's the Kickstarter, and I can just start talking a little bit about it here. So we have, this is the Kickstarter launch page. We are going to go live at the end of this. So the first things first, if you pledge within the first 48 hours, you get a signed and I just realized I might have forgotten an S in Lisanne's name, but we're going to just keep scrolling past that, and we're gonna fix that later. But you get an image of an 8x10 print of Malphion the Demon Horse shipped to you if you pledge a physical reward in the first 48 hours, and Lisanne will sign it, and you will get this. This is going to be exclusive to the Kickstarter only. Some may be for sale later on in the Kickstarter, but to start, you will get a free one if you pledge, and it will be shipped to you in the continental U.S. free of charge and flat rate shipping, or it'll be bundled with anything else physical you buy. So I've talked a little bit about the background of the world here. Now, you do need the arcane libraries, Shadow Dark RPG for this. This is not a standalone game. It is an expansion, but there are six classes that inhabit this world. There's the gunslingers, the holy rollers, the mystics, the brawlers, the riders, and the range riders. The brawlers are actually called the rough cuts, range riders, and the scouts. And each one of those serves a role of a traditional adventurer in an RPG. They are crafted to be unique to this setting. And there's filled with, legends of prehuman civilizations and ancient ruins and mines and all the things that you can use to make your dungeon crawling in the Old West a complete experience, as well as, of course, the landscape and settlements and towns. And I don't know if Lisanne has seen my sepia treatment of it, but this is one of our most recent paintings. It's a rough cut in the ruins of an ancient city being beset by some prehistoric horror that has crawled out of the ruins with its reptilian master in the background. So there's some of the character art. The character art is all based off Lisanne's paintings. And we've got the 6 new classes. We have a bunch of new creatures, which are all custom to ShadowWest and are based in our own Western folklore, but of course amped up. I'm also working on legendary creatures like Malphion, the demon horse, that you'll get the print of as a unique creature. The Coyote Man's a unique creature, and I have a few others that are going to be one of a kind, kind of these archetypes that are wandering around the West. Of course, additional encounter and random scenario generation charts based on this setting. Plenty of background on our own real West and some discussions on how to incorporate this fictional RPG setting. You're going to start with, there's going to be new backgrounds and legacies, because everybody's a human, at least all the player characters. There are no demi-human races. There's no elves and dwarves. But what I've done is I've crafted a series of legacies that people can roll randomly for that give them a little bit of supernatural edge. I give them a little bit of same kinds of abilities that you might get if you were playing a demi-human in another game. There's going to be new backgrounds. So there's going to be a skill system. Shades of Hellhound's Trail, which I'm going to be running at several conventions in the next year, is the intro scenario for 3 to 5 characters. We have Saggy's Dime Store novel, Thrilling Adventures. And what that is, that's going to be a zine that has 3 additional adventures, much larger, more fleshed out adventures than the one that comes with it. And this is the core book. Now, I will say that this is a placeholder cover for the Kickstarter. There is a special cover that is coming for the Kickstarter, and I think maybe it's time to reveal that. This is just a sketch. Lisanne crafted that this week. You might recognize the model. I don't know. Let me see if I can easily get a screen share going on. Stop screen, and we present the new screen. And here is our cover art, the sketch of our cover art. It is a rattle dragon, which was Lisanne's idea, which I thought was great. She's like, we need something cool for the cover. And she says, how about a sky caller calling down some ore with his pet dragon or his friendly dragon accompanying him? And I thought that was a fantastic idea. So I had some fun posing this week in my backyard as a sky caller. So there is our cover art for the special edition, for the Kickstarter edition. Again, just a sketch. We're going to be working out the full painting soon. Lisanne, as you've seen, works very quickly. And we will be getting some mock-ups of that up soon. The retail versions later will either have a different cover variation or a different cover entirely. We haven't decided yet. We are still working on whether or not which approach we are going to take with that. So let me get the Kickstarter back up here. And we have, all right, so this is about what the book's going to look like. It'll be black and white, as most of the Shadow Dark stuff is. Hardbound. Here's the specifications. Here's a mock-up of Saggy's Dime Store novel adventures. And you can watch some dev videos. And let's get on to the rewards. We have a bunch of rewards. I want to say, before I go through anything else and go through the reward tiers and the add-ons, everything here is crafted by humans. We are a 100% human company. No AI is used in any process for the final product creation. We support humans. We want support for human artists. Some of those human artists we will be introduced to Lisanne shortly, but I was fortunate enough to meet Crooked Tail Crafts, who hand make and craft and design with our home studio some amazing RPG accessories. Some of the things you're going to find are some custom dice, some coasters, some shot glasses. There's our Jackalope. He's one of my favorite characters so far. And we'll go over the reward tiers in a moment. I'm just going to say we are starting with a fairly low fulfillment threshold intentionally, but we have a bunch of stretch goals. At 2,500, we've got a GM screen that we're going to want to have drafted up. We have at 5,000, we have an additional adventure added to the fanzine, to the zine. At 10,000, there are 2 extra classes added to the core book. One of them being a Skycaller and the other one being an entertainer, who's going to be your bard-like character. At 15,000, a Dark Western soundtrack composed and performed by my bandmate and very good friend and expert composer and musician, Brett McCoy. And there are some links to his work up here too. And at 20,000, we've got a full campaign setting added. Much of that's already written for my own games and for my own work. So and then beyond that, we have some other goodies that we would like to unveil. But I think we're going to go right to the rewards and show you what you can get. Here are the tiers. The first tier is going to be the digital book, well, just the core digital book, because there were tiers, so I can actually see the prices. And that's your $19. That's your intro tier. Then a digital complete where you get both of the books in PDF format. And then we have the Kickstarter limited hardcover, and you get the PDF with that. And then we have a bundle where you get the printed fanzine or the zine. The printed, I was called a fanzine. It's a little bit of showing a little bit of my age there. Printed zine and the hardcover in addition to the PDFs. And then we have our premium layers, premium tiers. I was like, tier, what's that word? So the first premium tier is the faux leather slipcase. We are going to be doing faux leather. Crooked Crafts will be doing this for Crooked Tail Crafts will be doing this for us, and they will be emblazoning a faux leather slipcase for your books. Now it will be big enough to fit the fanzine as well. There, I said it again. The zine as well, and any other books that might be unlocked via stretch goals. Then the next reward tier up is the slipcase and a bunch of add-ons. We've got our coasters, we've got a shot glass, we've got some custom dice. That's our premium core add-on bundle. And then we have our all-in add-on bundle. By the way, these tiers include all digital stretch goals. So if we get another booklet published through stretch goals, they will be included digitally in these tiers. The highest end tier will also include physical prints, physical and digital stretch goals. It'll include every add-on we have, plus it's going to include an Oronex die that we're thinking is going to be a 40 millimeter die, about a 40 millimeter die larger than your average D20. And it's going to be made to look like a piece of Oronex that has fallen from the sky. Crooked Tails is working on that. This is just a mock-up. And I want to say a lot of what you're seeing right here now is mocked up, and actual production shots are coming soon. And they will be updated here, and they will be updated on the story and through Kickstarter updates, such as the Critter Pack. This is one of their Rogue Cat Critter stickers that I have. But they're going to be making some cute critters, some chibi critters for stickers out of Lisanne's illustrations. Here we see they have the luck tokens. We have the shot glass that shows our logo. There's the Malphion print that will be added later for sale. And we have some revolver cylinder wooden coasters that they designed. These dice, again, this is a mock-up, but these are actual dice that they have made with their home studio. And I just added the ShadowWest logo to one. And then the kind of the top end tier, if people are really eager for it, they are going to want to get a real leather, handcrafted, individually made custom slipcase from Crooked Tail Crafts. And again, it's not cheap. We source leather. They sourced leather for weeks for me, trying to get leather that would be affordable. And we are talking like between the materials and their time, you'd be getting a bargain with that real leather handcrafted custom slipcase for your books. But we wanted to offer it as an add-on. So if you buy the books and you want the real leather slipcase, you can upgrade to that. And we will be adding more info. We have quite a bit of information here. We have links to everybody here. And we are, of course, always happy to answer questions. There's a link to Crooked Tail Crafts. And again, this is some of their actual product. And we have all of our information. If you will go to the Kickstarter, you can get some of the previews of the game itself. Talk a little bit about costs and tariffs. You can read about that online. Shipping, if you buy just a book, just the books from us, they will be fulfilled by Drive-Thru RPG. Same with the PDFs. You will be getting a coupon directly to them to get the book, and you will be paying for shipping. Now, if you order one of the higher end rewards with additional add-ons, then what will happen is we will get the books produced and shipped to us. Like, let's say you order the full print slipcase special edition. We will just have the books produced. We will eat the cost of that. Have that sent to us, and then we will send that to you. And these are priced accordingly to take that production into account. So you're only going to be paying for shipping once, no matter what, whether you get just books and PDFs or whether you get the add-ons. It'll all be taken care of through one source. And I don't know if there's any questions right away about this. I don't know if Maeve had anything that she wanted to. I'll jump over to the comments and take a look, see if there's anything. Hello, everybody. I'm seeing people pop in and say hi. Okay, sorry, Maeve, go ahead.
No, you're good. Thank you for your patience. I have been multitasking. And...
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's why I kept talking. I was like, I'll just keep talking until I got nothing else to talk about.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, and I think I'm gonna move us into the next portion here. Yeah, if you're just joining on, welcome to the ShadowWest launch party. Tonight we're going to dive into what makes this game a thrilling, gritty, wildly fun ride. We've got previews, Q&A, behind the scenes look, and stick around. We're going to be talking with Lizanne Lake shortly, who is the artist of this incredible game. So I'm going to go ahead and roll our next clip, and then we'll bring Liz Ann on, and she will be talking about some of the character classes and her work creating the incredible art of this game.
Howdy, partners. John Harford of Fox and Boar Games coming at you out of the dark. Introducing our upcoming game, ShadowWest. Weird West dark fantasy powered by the fast and easy Shadow Dark system. A twist on our old Wild West, where mystical meteoric ore falls and can be called from the sky. The sun goes down and might not come up for another week, and the cities of ancient ones are just beneath your feet. Adventures are set in harrowing mines, prehistoric vistas, in the ruins of forgotten civilizations. You want more? Stretch goals will include special Kickstarter dice, a full campaign, a horror western soundtrack, and miniatures. To get previews, including a sneak peek of the Gunslinger class right now, go over to foxandboardgames.com and sign up for the mailing list. But also make sure you go to kickstarter.com, search ShadowWest, and mash that follow button to be notified as soon as it launches. There's a lot of gold in this Kickstarter. Don't miss out staking your claim. And as always, keep that lantern burning.
All right, so it is my pleasure to introduce the wonderful Liz Ann Lake, who has been a seasoned RPG artist for many, many years now. Liz Ann, welcome back. It's been a while.
Hi, y'all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, and if you're familiar with Liz Ann Lake, I'll let her, of course, give her own incredible bio, but she was also part of our last project, the Journeys deck, and she did the artwork on that as well. So you may have seen some of that interview. So yeah, just kind of walk us through some of your art background and what drew you to this project.
All right. Well, I've been a professional full-time illustrator for nearly 40 years now. I started with Dragon magazine back in the day. I'm a D&D artist, old D&D 1 artist. And I did paintings for Dragon magazine like for years. Then I did book covers and went into game cards. And I've done a lot of things on that. I did a lot of work on Doomtown, which is a similar game to this, another weird Western. So
Awesome. Yes. And we were at, what was it, the Philadelphia Page Expo a few months ago, and you had some of your incredible artwork on display. So that was a lot of fun. We might even have some viewers tuning in tonight from Page. So hello to everybody. You might have met some of us at the booth there. So I'm curious for you, what sets ShadowWest apart in your mind from some of the other work that you've done in the past with different RPGs?
I don't think I love painting Westerns. I don't get much opportunity to do Westerns. I like critters and monsters too, of course, but I'm a big fan of Remington and Russell and the old Western painters, and that's where action painting started. So I'm really happy to get an opportunity to do more Westerns and historically accurate ones.
Exactly. It's a lot of fun. And, I have to say, I love the diversity of your work. That is really coming through as well. And some of the ShadowWest character classes. Tell us more about that. How do you go about choosing the imagery?
Oh, how do I choose my models? My friends hang around me often enough, and you'll be in a picture too. It's like,
famous cameos.
Yes, notice all the people I've painted for ShadowWest are people I know.
Awesome. Yes.
And I'm very into diversity and representation.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. And we have like a slight delay, but I'm also really excited about the fact that your work is so, it's all hand painted, right? So it's going back to that really beautiful classic art style. And I'm curious, like, I know the Journeys deck, when we talked about that was a lot of hand painted work. What are your mediums that you're working with for ShadowWest?
I work with acrylic. Okay. I am totally incompetent on a computer, as we can see here. But I work with acrylic paints, and I'm painting the paintings for the core book on vellum, which is similar to things I've done before for Western paintings. And I'm the black and whites are on vellum, and the cover will be on masonite. So, awesome. Which is a traditional SF fantasy.
Okay. Very cool. I'm not as versed in some of those, but I will have to check them out. And I'm curious also if you have a favorite piece that you've done so far. I know we're really in the early stages, but you always have a good story about your work. So
the first piece I did is very special to me because I did Ivy Pearl the Gunslinger, the painting. And when I worked for Doomtown, the parent company AEG literally expressly forbid me to paint a dark-skinned Black person. And they were all over the West. Everybody was Black and Spanish in the West, not these white guys. So the first thing I did was paint my friend as Gunslinger.
Nice. Love it. So these are some rapid fire questions as well. Sure. And I'm just going to pull those up just for fun here. So for you, paintbrush or pencil?
Well, I use paintbrush. I prefer paintbrush.
For everything, right? No pencil. Okay. Do you have a favorite weird Western film or book you can think of?
Excuse me? We were breaking up.
Do you have a favorite weird Western film or book?
Oh, weird Western film or book. I have a favorite Western. It's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which I was in love with Robert Redford when I was young.
It's a classic. Awesome. And then as for like monsters, gunslingers, or haunted landscapes, which are you the most excited to paint?
I think the gunslingers. I like doing the Western people. I like doing horses too. You'll be seeing a lot of horses in this project. The West has horses in it and guns.
Yeah, and I had a lot of fun the other day making this like demon horse video. It was kind of my first jump scare video.
Good. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, and I was curious how you got the concept for this demon horse, because it's funny. So I live in Colorado. We have an airport called DIA, and there's a famous horse there called Lucifer, and it reminded me a lot of that. So I was curious if you drew inspiration from anywhere.
No, I like drawing horses, as I said, and I feel like we need nooses because it's a Western, and the Lord loves a hanging, and
totally. Cool. Well, I'm gonna bring John back on, and we're gonna talk through some of the mechanics, the character classes a bit more, and just really give everyone a good feel for what they're getting into when they're backing this campaign, what this experience is going to be like. So here comes John.
I am. Cool. Hello. Hey, listen. So I don't know. Did we bounced a lot of ideas? We've known each other a long time now. We bounced a lot of ideas off each other. When I said, I'm thinking of this dark Western, you were like, hey, I'm a Western artist. I'm like, I know. So it was
funny thing.
It kind of worked out perfectly. It was like, okay. I guess you're gonna do some more art. So I think it's great. And obviously I was obviously familiar with your Doomtown work, and having maybe been in a card or two on that too. So I was definitely I don't know. Like as far as the mechanics, I mean, the Shadow Dark mechanics are they kind of are what they are. But what are you thinking in terms of how should your paintings portray the qualities of the class? Like, how do you kind of go about thinking about that? Because like I've given you kind of like, well, there's the scout. They kind of do this, or the gunslinger kind of does this.
Well, they have to actually represent the class, and they have to look Western.
Yeah.
They have to have some element that people immediately recognize as being Western.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that too, that there are certain things in certain poses that you can or you can't use, like horses' rears. You made it very clear we're not doing any horses' rears. I thought it was funny because even though I'm familiar with art, familiar with Westerns, I never really thought about that. We
never see the posse running to something.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
That's not something I ever actually thought of. Like, that's true. And we talked about it early on, this idea to represent everybody who was in the West. Because for a long time, it was just your traditional Caucasian Western heroes, and everybody else is like a secondary character or a villain. And we know the real world, the real West wasn't like that. The real West was incredibly diverse.
No.
Kind of like our own real Middle Ages was actually very different. So
very diverse.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to represent the diversity, as do you. Yeah.
No. I think it's a good plan.
And I especially like having characters who look like the gamers who are playing to play this game.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. No, and I thought that was a really good observation. I don't know. Did Maeve have any specific thoughts or questions that she wanted us to cover? See, it's Maeve. Is Maeve there?
I don't.
Not particularly.
I wasn't a lot of time about talking about the game mechanics tonight, because I've got several videos in the works on that. But if there's any, I don't want to open up to questions or.
Yeah, we can do that. Does anyone have any questions for Lizanne or John?
I'm happy to talk.
After the Q&A, we will be launching the game. So
I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about the classes, the world, the games. But if people have questions, I mean, we've got our scout class, who is a kind of a rangery thief or roguey type class. We have the holy roller, who is your holy caster, but they believe where the power actually comes from is up to the GM and the player, but they believe it's coming from God, the Judeo-Christian God. There are mystics who can come from any tradition, whether they'll cast arcane spells. They could be everything from a European to a Native American to a what's the inspiration for the Mystic? So the inspiration for the Mystic, that was interesting because Neil just asked that. That was actually the toughest class for me to conceptualize because I was like, how do I put a wizard in the Old West without it being just silly, right? So what I decided is they were part of these secret orders. They were part of some secret order that was probably a holdover from our own Middle Ages, a Hermetic order or something that had been, and they're part of a secret lodge. Most of them are probably going to be part of one of the secret lodges that has harbored mystic tradition like the secret societies that were common in the 18th, 19th century. Mm-hmm. And that's where the mystics get their power from. And I'm thinking that instead of finding a scroll, you have to go into a ruin and find a tablet with an ancient writing on it to learn a new spell. Of course, there could be other things in the ruins that probably don't want you to learn a new spell. So it's going to be a little bit of that kind of modern magician sensibility with this kind of holdover of the traditional fantasy sorcerer, traditional fantasy spellcaster. But they were actually the single hardest class for me to kind of nail down what I wanted them to be and how I was going to manage it.
I can imagine. And I'm also curious for us three and anyone in the comments or whoever's watching tonight, what class is calling to you? I know I'm particularly drawn to the Holy Roller for all kinds of reasons.
Well, the Holy Roller is great because as several people who are in this feed know, one of my favorite characters was a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay character who was a devout religious fanatic of Sigmar, and he was the exact opposite of me in every way. It was hilarious playing this completely closed-minded, completely zealous, completely like one-tracked, there's only one right way, which is the exact opposite of me in the real world. It was hilarious playing him. I could see the Holy Roller taking on that quality. I could see a Holy Roller that has actually drawing their power from somewhere else, whether they know it or not. A Holy Roller who has these powers, but they are drawing from them from some infernal source. There are many ways to approach this, and amazingly, the cleric spells in Shadowdark really fit the Holy Roller to begin with because they all do have that kind of old school cleric Knights Templar feel to them, so I stuck with that. Class is calling to me. That's really difficult. Like, whenever I sit down to play an RPG at this point, I say, hand me something, because I've played so many characters over the years. I'm like, just give me a character, I'll role play it, I'll have fun with it. Of course I like the gunslinger because everybody wants to play a gunslinger. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually kind of liking the rough cut or the scout, who are the two martial / utility characters, but aren't necessarily just guns and frontal combat. They have other things they can do. The scout in particular, I'm thinking, is cool. And the range rider is cool. You start with a horse. It's the only character class that starts with a horse, unless you buy one, have the money to buy one, which most people won't to start. So the rough rider or the range rider can start with the horse, and they have kind of druidic. They don't have magic power, but they have the ability to deal with animals, and they have some survival skills, some outdoor survival skills and stuff like that. I tried to keep everything Shadowdark. I tried to keep everything that you could almost take these characters and rename them and give them swords and drop them back into Shadowdark and they work. But I was very careful to not just take the Shadowdark fighter and make it a Western character. Now, the rough cut's very close to a Shadowdark fighter. Anyone who plays it, is the one who anyone who plays Shadowdark could look at the rough cut and look at the fighter and be like, all right, there's similarity there. Or warrior, I forget what the exact term is. But in any case, they're more or less analogous. But they're specific to the setting. I wanted to make everything organic to the setting versus just a Western setting where you could drop Shadowdark characters into.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Lizanne? What do you think of the classes here? Which one are you drawn to?
I'm with you. I like the Holy Roller and I like the Mystic. Too.
I think they're going to be really
I'd like to try a Mystic because it sounds interesting.
I'll do some online play tests. That's once the school semester. Most people here also know I'm in academia. Once the semester is over and I get done with travel, I'd like to come back. I think I'd try Classics Gunslinger first. Yeah, Holy Roller. That's cool. I mean, I'm glad people are gravitating. Hey, John, I'm glad people are gravitating towards the Holy Roller because I think it's really unique to have this character. So what do I have to do to bring guns into Shadowdark? That's a good question, Neil. Yes, there are rules for fanning. There are rules for fanning. The holy roller, or sorry, not the holy roller. Well, they might have a fanning rule too, of a different kind. But the gunslinger has a special fanning rule. They're a fanning ability, and they've also got several different kinds of gunplay tricks that they can use. And you can specialize as a rifle or a pistol. Now, I do like historic firearms. I am familiar with their actual operation and how they were used historically in the Old West. So I am keeping that pretty close. They are deadly because it is Shadow Dark, and even a mid-level character getting shot once could be bad. I kept it really simple though. I kept it. This weapon does this much damage. If you fight, some weapons have multiple, have a rate of fire, and then you get a disadvantage if you shoot. If you're not trained and you shoot multiple times. Generally, the big advantage is, of course, they can hit at a range much further than most other things. A sword and a knife, or a sword and a pistol, rather, might do similar damage, but when a person's being shot from 30 yards away, it's a different situation. So that's how I kind of started treating firearms. And by the way, those rules are not completely done yet; they're just fleshed out.
Okay.
I'm really excited to get the train rules. I just noted that a couple weeks ago. I gotta have train rules. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of rules. Like Shadow Dark, I'm not making this a mechanical exercise.
Sure.
I'm making this a guideline that a GM and a player can create a story from.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a theme with a lot of our games at Fox and Boar Games, right? Is we like to make things more roll heavy and not so much roll heavy. So yeah, that makes a difference. Very cool. Well, I'm loving some of these comments here. It sounds like there's a lot of people drawn to the Holy Roller Mystic.
That's interesting.
And what would you say some of these like nuanced differences are between, say, like the gunslinger and the range rider, combat and tactics?
So it's different abilities. They have different. So the way Shadow Dark works is there are talents that define each class, and they have different talents, and they have maybe different hit point structure, or can wear different armor. Now, armor in the game is obviously limited to hide, leather, denim. Good luck walking around New Mexico in full plate. That's or even chainmail. Sure, you could. I guess you could do it. There are thoughts in the future. One of the stretch goals might be a book that has some weird science. So it is possible somebody could walk around in some kind of magic powered armor. But again, just like in Shadow Dark, magic is not always guaranteed either. Magic actually can be very dangerous. And that's one of the things I like about Shadow Dark is there's an unpredictability to magic. And I'm drawing that in here. The Onyx enhances magic power, but it also enhances the possibility of wild activity. And it also, extensive use will drive somebody insane if they're exposed to a lot of it for a long period of time. So there's there's a little bit of predictable eldritch horror going in there. So I have 6 core classes right now. Good question, Scott. I've got 6 core classes coming in, and they again are the scout, the rough cut, the range rider, gunslinger, and the holy roller and the mystic. There are 2 additional classes that are part of a stretch goal that would probably come out eventually, but I'll work on them sooner if we meet the stretch goal. And that is a player character Skycaller, the magicians that are skilled in working with the Onyx. And there's an entertainer coming in. And I'm actually, I already have the entertainer in works, and it's a lot of fun. But I'm going to save that and roll it out in a later book. If we hit the, I forget what stretch goal I said it was, 15 or something, 15,000. Then I would work on it now and put it into the core book.
Awesome. Well, it's all coming together rather quickly, and honestly, I'm
that's what I was going to be doing with my spring, but I guess I am, and I'm not.
Yeah, not too bad.
I'm very excited about it. So
before we launch the actual game, I want to invite anyone else. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. And I do have one more question for both John and Lizanne here. So, John, you mentioned that, the ShadowWest world is kind of inspired by our American West frontier. Sure. And I'm curious what landscapes or parts of the country come to mind for you in your writing.
Well, that's a great question because it is not a fantasy world. It is our own real world. And I have spent time in the Southwest, a little bit of time in the Southwest, but not on the high plains or the prairie. And I would actually like to see more of that and experience more of that. So I'm thinking probably I'm going to center my first campaign in New Mexico, because I also run Down Darker Trails, Call of Cthulhu, in an historic town, Pinos Altos, New Mexico, that I found all the original boundary maps and stuff like that for, and I fleshed out this town. So some of that will seep its way in.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
I saw John had another question.
Oh, yeah.
So monsters, good question. So I am working off of folkloric monsters of the American West and things that might come out of that. So for example, like we talked about a jackalope very early on, I said to Lisanne, I'm like, but I don't want like a cute little jackalope out on a plane. I want like a jackalope that's like the size of a grizzly bear, you know, like something that's like really weird and scary. And then I said, well, I got this idea called the Coyote Man that I want it to almost be like a mythic figure, like, you know, like Nyarlathotep of the Cthulhu mythos, this kind of crawling chaos, wandering troublemaker. You know, there is going to be a chupacabra. That was one of the first creatures. Lisanne was like, let's make a chupacabra. I was like, great. So we got a chupacabra, things that you might associate with the Mythic West. Now, if you want to have stingbats in your minds, or if you want to have orcs in your minds, I'm not the guy to tell you not to do it. Like, I'm totally open to however anyone wants to treat this in terms of how much fantasy is going to be in there. But I'm thinking that for the core book, I'm going to have about 30 monsters. I'm going to have a couple types of undead that are kind of native to the folklore of the area. There are going to be like skinwalker, shape changer types from Native American folklore. What else we got? We got the bleak bats. They debuted today, so everyone's like, "Oh my god, we have sting bats! Now we have bleak bats!" And sting bats are an iconic creature. The Thunderbird, you know, I haven't worked on a Thunderbird yet, but I could. It could be interesting. There are pterodactyls, because of course there were pterodactyls in the Old West. We know all the stories of those. In fact, there might be whole areas that are like lost in time, valleys and gulches, where you might encounter other prehistoric things that are wandering around. So that's the sort of creatures I'm envisioning. I'm also seeing a lot of, I don't want stingbats in the mines. They just showed up on their own. Yeah, exactly right. And no one wants them in the mines. There are other things in the mines. There are other things in the mines, though. But I am also thinking that the bleak is going to play a big part of this, the supernatural darkness called the bleak. And there are certain creatures that come out only during the bleak, and they feed off of it. And I wanted to take the concept of the shadow dark in the core game and make it into something that's almost elemental. That's something that in and of itself, it's almost sentient and dangerous. And that's what the bleak is. And when it shows up, all these other creatures that are normally kept at bay come into the world too. So, and yeah, I mean, I've already thought of that. I'm like, what if someone wants to put orcs in this? I'm like, oh, I don't care. You can have orcs lurking around the Old West. That's cool, you know?
Yeah, and on that note of monsters, you know, and some of your other games like Tales of the Harrowed Land, you know, you've obviously drawn a lot of inspiration from other ancient mythology and different historical concepts. And so how is that playing a role in this game? Because I know
it's playing a big role. Like I said, most of the core creatures, there are legends of something like it in our old West folklore. And those are the creatures I'm going to showcase. And people can make it as D&D and sword and sorcery as they want. They can be out there, you know, fighting traditional D&D monsters with 6 guns. That's cool by me. But everything that I'm pulling in here, I've done a good amount of research on. And that's the other thing that the book is going to feature. It's going to have a section where I talk about integrating our historic setting, our historic mythology, the mythology of the West, which is very different from the reality of the West, and how to bring it into this fantasy setting, but still keep it a fun game. I mean, it's not, you know, still got to be a fun game, but how do you make it feel like the Old West versus just another fantasy game with guns, you know?
100%. Well, it is, like I said, it's coming along. So thank you all so much for your excitement, your energy that you're bringing to this game, and your support. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm overwhelmed by the amount of support. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. Thanks everyone for supporting me on the various forums.
And don't go away yet. We're going to be launching the game in just a few minutes. Lisanne, I also want to say thank you so much to you as well, because you're contributing so much to this. You're literally bringing these worlds to life. And for the early backers out there, I can't wait for you to get your signed demon horse print. That's just way too exciting. So
thank you.
Yeah, that's gonna be amazing. All right. So John, it looks like the screen share is queued up. Is that the right section?
It should be. I guess we're gonna
Okay.
find out. Good luck today. Thank you
Sounds
very much.
good. All right, here we go, people.
Well, people
Stay
say they want
tuned.
to
I'm
practice for
gonna
launches. Here it comes. Here it
pull
comes.
this up here.
All
There
right,
we
here
go.
it is. I'm ready to launch.
We're doing it.
And I've read these. Yes, I've read these. And launch project. And ShadowWest is going live on both purposes. It's going live. There it goes. It is live.
Awesome. All right.
Go get them. Go stake your claim. And of course, you ever got any questions, you could shoot me an email. You could post something on a forum and let me know. But it's going. It's ready to go. So
absolutely. And like we had mentioned before, if you want, some in-depth previews of some of these character classes that we've been going over tonight, feel free to check out our website, foxandboardgames.com, join the mailing list, and we will have those available to download right away so you can get started dreaming up your scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all live. The link to the Kickstarter is in the chat, and we look forward to seeing you all throughout the campaign and keeping in touch, giving you updates. Thank you so much for your support.
All right. Thank you, Maeve. Thank you, Lisanne, for the support and the work. And thanks for everybody for coming on and being part of this.
Absolutely. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.